She took 4 arrows protecting the Lycan King's pup. What happened after left everyone in tears. Alara moved cautiously, her bow slung across her back and her senses stretched like the strings of her weapon. She had walked these woods all her life, yet tonight something felt different. The air carried a strange chill, the mist curling along the roots and rocks as if alive, and shadows moved where there should have been none. Her fingers tightened around the leather strap of her quiver. Every hunter knows when the forest speaks. Tonight, it whispered danger. From the edge of the clearing, a faint whimper reached her ears. Alara froze, straining to locate it. It was soft, urgent, and unmistakably a cry for help. Her heart beat faster, not for herself but for whoever, or whatever, was in danger. She moved silently, slipping over fallen leaves, keeping low. There, huddled between a fallen tree and a patch of thorned bushes, was a small figure, a pup. Its fur was silver, eyes wide and terrified. But what caught her attention more were the shadows surrounding it, tall, dark shapes moving too fast for the eye to track. Alara's instincts screamed. The figures were not ordinary wolves. They moved with an unnatural precision, and a strange aura of malice clung to them. The pup's whines pierced her heart. Without thinking, she pulled an arrow from her quiver, nocked it, and let it fly. The shot struck a shadowy figure in the chest. It yelped and recoiled, revealing its form as it dissolved into mist. Another figure lunged from the darkness. Alara released her second arrow, then her third, each hitting its mark. But the fourth one came too late. An arrow meant for the pup grazed her arm instead. She felt the sharp sting, but there was no time to pause. The shadows surged forward, faster than she could count. Another arrow was loosed from her bow, and pain lanced through her side as one of them struck her. She stumbled, gasping, blood warming her fingers as she clutched herself. But the pup was safe, huddled in the small hollow, trembling but alive. Then came a sound that made her blood run cold and her muscles stiffen, a roar low and filled with power. The shadows froze. The mist seemed to shrink away from a presence that exuded authority and danger. Kale, the Lycan King. He stepped from the shadows, massive and imposing, silver eyes glowing in the dark. Even without the moonlight hitting him directly, his presence filled the forest like a storm. His gaze swept over the pup, over the fading shadows, and finally settled on Alara. "Who dares?" His voice was calm, yet the weight behind it made the very air vibrate. Alara, though wounded, straightened as much as she could. I couldn't let them hurt him." Her voice was small yet steady. She pointed to the pup, still quivering in the hollow. Kale's eyes softened, not much, but enough for Alara to notice. Then he knelt, moving with astonishing speed, and swept the pup into his arms. He turned to the shadows. With a single commanding gesture, the creatures evaporated, leaving the clearing silent once more. "You are reckless," Kale said, his tone sharp now, directed at her. "Do you know what you have done?" Alara swallowed, the pain in her side sharp enough to bring tears to her eyes, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "I know I could not let them take him. He is innocent." Kale studied her, tilting his head as though trying to read the lines of her life written across her face. "Most humans would have fled or begged for their life. You chose otherwise. Tell me, why?" "I couldn't stand by and do nothing," she said simply. She didn't explain the nights spent hunting in these woods, the stories of lost travelers, or the strange pull she had always felt toward this forest and its creatures. She only knew she could not abandon the pup. A long silence followed. Kale's eyes flickered with an emotion she could not name. Anger, pride, something darker, deeper. Then he made a decision. "Come with me," he said. "Now you cannot stay here. The forest is not safe for you, not tonight and not ever again." Alara shook her head weakly, but the world around her felt suddenly heavy, her body failing her. She had taken 4 arrows in the span of minutes. Her vision blurred. The king's presence loomed over her, and despite every instinct screaming to run, she found herself unable to resist. Kale knelt beside her, his hand under her back, lifting her with astonishing strength. The pup whimpered, pressing close to him. The forest seemed to shrink away behind them as he carried her through paths she had never noticed, the mist curling around their steps like silver smoke. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, dawn was beginning to bleed into the sky, painting the world in muted pinks and purples. Kale carried her into the castle gates, the massive wooden doors creaking open at his approach. Servants and guards froze, staring at the king with the human girl in his arms. Whispers ran through the stone halls, some in awe, some in fear. He brought her to a chamber lit by flickering torches. The walls were adorned with tapestries depicting battles, hunts, and victories that spanned generations of Lycan rulers. He set her gently on the bed, brushing her hair from her face. "You've risked your life for him," Kale said, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. "Do you understand what that means?" Alara's breathing was uneven. Her hand went to her side, feeling the warmth of the wound. I did what I had to do," she said, voice trembling but honest. Kale's eyes softened further. The king's composure seemed to falter for the first time she had ever seen. He looked down at the pup, then back at her. "Few would have the courage or the heart, but you have both." Alara tried to sit up, the effort pulling at her side. I don't know why, but I felt I had to protect him. I couldn't let him die, not like this." Kale studied her for a long moment. Then, without warning, he leaned closer. His breath was warm against her ear, his voice low and serious. "You've risked everything for him, and now you belong to us." Alara froze, her heart thudding violently. She didn't understand what he meant. Was she to be a guest, a servant, or something else? The weight of the words pressed on her, heavier than the pain in her side. Before she could respond, a knock came at the door. A guard's voice echoed through the chamber. "My king, the council waits. They speak of the attack and the human who saved the pup." Kale's jaw tightened. He helped her lie back, covering her with a soft blanket. "Rest," he said. "You will need your strength. The forest is not the only place danger waits. There are those who would see the pup harmed, and you punished for your interference." Alara's eyes fluttered shut, but sleep did not come easily. Thoughts of the pup, the king, the shadows in the forest, and the mysterious words he had whispered kept her mind restless. Outside the chamber, the castle hummed with activity. Elders debated, guards patrolled, and whispers of an unusual human girl who had dared protect the Lycan king's heir spread like wildfire. Kale stood by the window, silent, looking out over the forest. He thought of her courage, her defiance, and something strange and dangerous stirred in his chest, something he had not felt in centuries. The sun rose higher, painting the sky gold. Alara's breaths came shallow but steady. The wound in her side burned, a sharp reminder of her sacrifice. And though she did not fully understand the power, the danger, or the path ahead, she knew one thing clearly: her life had changed forever. And so had the Lycan King. The forest outside whispered once more, secrets drifting in the morning mist, warning of trials yet to come. And in the castle, a bond began, a fragile, dangerous, and unspoken connection between a human girl and a king whose heart had long been shrouded in shadows. Cliffhanger. As Alara drifted into an uneasy sleep, Kale leaned closer to the bed, eyes glowing faintly in the torchlight, and whispered, "If you thought your danger ended in the forest, you were wrong." Alara awoke to a castle bathed in golden morning light, filtered through tall, arched windows. The warmth of the sun was a comfort, but the ache in her side reminded her that her body had been pushed to its limits. She slowly sat up, her hand brushing over the soft blankets that surrounded her. The wound still throbbed, but it was not as sharp as before. For a moment she allowed herself to feel relief. She had survived the forest attack, protected the Lycan pup, and, though she did not yet fully understand it, she had earned the attention of the Lycan King himself. The quiet of the room was broken by a soft knock. "Enter," she called, her voice still weak. The door creaked open and a young servant stepped inside, holding a tray with warm broth. "Mistress," The king sends this for you. He says it will help you regain your strength." Alara took the tray with a nod. "Thank you," she said softly. The servant curtsied and left, leaving her alone once more. She sipped the broth, the warmth spreading through her chest, and thought of the forest, the shadows, and Kale's eyes, so piercing, so unreadable, yet full of something she could not name. She did not notice when the door opened again, this time without knocking. "You are awake," Kale's deep voice said. Alara turned sharply, her hand instinctively moving to her bow, which was nowhere near her. The Lycan king stepped into the room, tall and imposing as always, his silver eyes unreadable. "You should not wander so soon after your wounds," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "The forest is not the only danger. This castle holds its own." Alara straightened as best she could, ignoring the ache in her muscles. "I can move carefully. I am not helpless." Kale's eyes softened just slightly. "I did not mean to imply you are, only that the world you have entered is not the same as the woods you know. Here one wrong step could cost more than a wound. It could cost your life or the pup's." She flinched at the reminder of the pup, Aiden. She had not yet seen him since the attack. "He is safe?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kale inclined his head. "Safe for now. But there are those who would use him to weaken me or the pack. You may not understand it yet, but your actions have placed you in the center of a storm you cannot yet see." Alara's heart quickened. "Then I will face it. I will protect him, no matter what." Kale regarded her for a long moment, his silver eyes searching hers as though testing the truth of her words. Then, with a fluid motion, he extended a hand. "Come, you need to meet the elders. They will decide your place here." Her stomach tightened. Elders of the Lycan pack were formidable beings, older and wiser than anyone she had ever met. She had faced rogue wolves and shadow creatures, but standing before the Council of Lycans was another matter entirely. The great hall was vast, its high ceiling painted with scenes of battles and hunts that had shaped the kingdom for generations. The elders sat in a semicircle, their expressions sharp, their eyes studying her as she entered. Aiden sat safely on Kale's lap, peeking at her with wide, trusting eyes. "Your Majesty," the eldest spoke first, voice low and commanding. "This human girl saved the pup, and yet she is not of our blood. Why should we trust her?" Kale's eyes narrowed, a dangerous edge creeping into his expression. "She risked her life to protect the future of this pack. That alone is proof enough of her loyalty." Alara swallowed hard. She could feel the weight of their gazes, each elder testing her, trying to see if she was worthy. She bowed her head respectfully. "I only did what I thought was right. I mean no harm to your people. I only wish to protect the pup." Another elder leaned forward, eyes glittering. "Do you understand what you have done? To intervene in the affairs of Lycans is dangerous. You could have been killed, and your actions may bring more enemies to our door." "I understand," she said firmly, "and I would do it again. I cannot abandon someone in danger, even if it means facing death myself." The elders murmured among themselves. Kale's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Finally, the eldest spoke again. "Very well. If the king vouches for you, we will allow you to stay for now. But know this, your presence here is not a gift. It is a responsibility. Fail, and the consequences will be yours alone." Alara nodded. "I understand." Kale stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You will train with the pack, learn our ways. If you are to remain here, you must understand not only how to survive, but how to protect those you care for." Over the following days, Alara began her new life in the castle. The halls were filled with the scent of burning torches and polished stone, the echo of footsteps, and the quiet murmurs of Lycans going about their duties. She trained daily, learning their techniques, their rituals, and their customs. Every move was observed, every mistake noted. Kale watched her closely, sometimes instructing, sometimes silently observing. There were moments when his gaze lingered longer than necessary, and Alara could feel the weight of it, though she did not fully understand why. She was a human girl in a kingdom of Lycans, yet his attention felt personal. One night, as the castle slept and only the moonlight lit the courtyard, Alara found herself practicing her archery alone. The bow felt heavy in her hands, the strings taut with tension. She drew an arrow back and let it fly, hitting the target dead center. A voice behind her made her start. "You improve quickly." Kale stepped from the shadows, his form blending with the darkness. Alara's heart raced, but she did not lower her bow. "I have to. I cannot fail." "You fear failure," he said softly, moving closer. "But there is more at stake than your own life. The pup and this pack need more than strength. They need courage, and you have that in abundance." Alara lowered her bow slightly, meeting his gaze. "I will protect him." "No matter the cost." Kale's silver eyes softened. "And yet you do not know the cost that loyalty demands." The wind shifted, rustling the trees outside the castle walls. A shadow moved along the battlements, a warning of danger she could not yet see. The council had not mentioned the rival factions, the enemies lurking in the night, nor the dark forces that had first sent the shadows after Aiden. The days passed, each one bringing new lessons and challenges. Alara learned the language of the pack, the silent signs of intention, and the subtleties of Lycan politics. She began to understand Kale's burdens, the weight of ruling a kingdom divided between humans and Lycans, and the cost of power that came with a crown. Through it all, Kale remained a constant presence. Sometimes cold, sometimes unexpectedly gentle, he tested her in ways no one else would. He allowed her small freedoms, time with the pup, moments in the courtyard, but he never let her forget the dangers surrounding her. And then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the castle was bathed in crimson light, word came that rival factions had been spotted near the northern woods. They sought to capture Aiden, to weaken Kale's rule. Alara felt her stomach tighten. "They will not harm him," she said, voice steady though her heart raced. "I will stop them." Kale's eyes darkened. "This is no longer a game, Alara. Those who seek the pup are ruthless. They will not hesitate to kill you if you interfere." "I do not care," she said firmly. "I cannot let them take him." Kale studied her for a long moment, his silver eyes glowing faintly in the twilight. "You are brave, perhaps more than you realize, but bravery alone may not be enough." The next night, under a sky filled with stars, Alara and Kale stood on the castle balcony, overlooking the northern woods. Aiden slept nearby, unaware of the dangers that stalked him. Kale placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, his touch firm yet protective. "If you go into the forest tonight, know this. I will be there watching, and I will not forgive failure. You may save the pup or you may fall trying." Alara met his gaze, determination burning in her eyes. "I will protect him. I will not fail." Kale's jaw tightened, and for a brief moment his guard fell. He looked at her not as a human girl, not as a subject, but as someone whose courage had touched even the heart of a king. The wind carried the scent of the forest, dark and wild, warning of enemies unseen. Shadows moved beyond the trees, silent and waiting. Alara drew her bow once more, her resolve hardening. She would face whatever came, for the pup, for the pack, and for the fragile bond forming between herself and the king who had captured her heart without a word. Cliffhanger, a sudden rustle in the trees, faster than any human could move, and the glowing eyes of the attackers appeared, surrounding the clearing. Alara's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to come. Kale's voice rang out, low and commanding. Alara crouched behind a thick trunk, her bow nocked, eyes darting between the glowing eyes surrounding the clearing. The attackers had come in numbers she had not expected, swift and silent, trained in ways that reminded her of the shadows in the forest from days ago. Beside her, Kale shifted, his presence grounding her. His silver eyes scanned the darkness, muscles tensed, ready to spring. "Stay close," he murmured. "They are faster than ordinary hunters. Do not underestimate them." Alara swallowed hard, her fingers tightening on the bow. She could feel the weight of the pup's life on her shoulders, the trust Kale had placed in her, and the fragile bond forming between them. She would not fail, not now, not ever. A rustle, a snap of a branch, and then they moved. Figures cloaked in black darted from the shadows, surrounding the clearing, their eyes glowing faintly red in the moonlight. Alara fired her first arrow, hitting one squarely in the chest. The figure disappeared in a swirl of shadow. Another lunged at the pup. Without hesitation, she released another arrow, her aim steady despite the pounding of her heart. Kale moved with fluid grace, his hands glowing faintly with the power of his lineage. Shadows that attempted to strike him dissolved at his touch, and yet he did not stop. His attention remained on Alara, guiding, protecting, silently acknowledging her courage. But the attackers were many. Even together, they could not hold them off indefinitely. A shadow lunged directly at Alara, and she stumbled, the pain from her old wound in her side flaring sharply. Kale reacted instantly, catching her before she fell, their bodies brushing in the heat of the moment. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the feel of him, the warmth of his presence and the intensity of his gaze. "You are reckless," he said, his voice low but not harsh. "You must control your fear, or it will control you." "I will protect him," she said fiercely, pointing toward Aiden, who whimpered but remained safe behind Kale. The shadows hesitated, sensing the king's fury but still pressed forward. One lunged at Aiden. Alara reacted instantly, leaping in front of him, arrow knocked, heart pounding. She fired, hitting the shadow just in time. Kale growled, his power flaring, and with a sweep of his hand, the remaining shadows were pushed back, retreating into the darkness from which they had come. Silence fell over the clearing. The moon shone down, painting silver across the sweat on their foreheads and the blood on her arm. Aiden looked up at her, his small eyes wide and trusting. Alara knelt beside him, brushing a hand through his soft fur. "It's over for now," she whispered. Kale stood behind them, his chest rising and falling, still tense. His eyes met hers, a mixture of admiration and something more dangerous, more intimate. "You have courage beyond measure," he said, his voice low and almost a whisper. "But bravery alone will not protect him forever." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "Then I will learn, I will be ready." For days after the attack, the castle remained on high alert. Alara trained harder than ever, learning not only archery but also the ways of the pack. She studied their movements, their strategies, their rituals. She began to understand the subtle language of the Lycan kingdom, the flick of a tail, the shift of a shoulder, the glance that could speak volumes without a single word. Kale was always nearby, watching her, sometimes instructing, sometimes silently observing. Their interactions were electric, filled with unspoken words and tension that neither of them fully acknowledged. Yet every glance, every shared moment, deepened the bond forming between them. One evening, Kale led her to a secluded chamber deep within the castle, walls lined with books and ancient scrolls. The air smelled of old parchment and candle wax. "You must understand the history of my bloodline," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "There is a curse that follows every king of this pack. It is old, older than the walls of this castle. It seeks to punish weakness and to destroy those who interfere with the king's fate." Alara's brow furrowed. "A curse," Kale nodded, his expression solemn. "The curse is tied to loyalty and love. Anyone outside the pack who forms a bond with the king, through trust, through sacrifice, faces a choice. Either they are destroyed by the forces that guard the line or they are transformed, changed forever." Alara swallowed, the room suddenly feeling smaller, heavier. "And me? Does this curse apply to me?" Kale's silver eyes softened, but his voice carried the weight of inevitability. "It may. Your loyalty, your courage, your love for the pup, these things have drawn the curse's attention. It watches, waiting to test you, to see if you can survive what others could not." She felt a chill creep over her, but she straightened, determination burning in her chest. Then I will face it. I will not let it destroy me or him. Kale studied her, his gaze intense, searching for fear, doubt, anything that might signal weakness. He found none. Instead, he found something that had not been there in centuries, a human willing to stand in the face of impossible danger, unflinching, loyal, brave. You may not yet understand the depth of what you have stepped into, he said, but you will. And when you do, you will have to choose, trust me or face the curse alone. The days that followed were filled with more training, more lessons, and more tension. Alara grew stronger, her confidence bolstered by Kale's guidance, yet the knowledge of the curse lingered in her mind, a shadow she could not shake. Then, one night, as the moon rose high and the castle slept, a messenger arrived with urgent news. Another faction had moved against them. This time it was not just shadows, they were Lycans turned against the king, corrupted and dangerous. Their goal, to capture Aiden and weaken the king. Kale's jaw tightened. "You will stay close," he ordered. "Do not leave the walls. You may be brave, but this is beyond anything you have faced." Alara shook her head. I will not let them take him, I promised." Kale's eyes darkened. "If you leave, you may not return. Are you willing to risk that?" Her gaze met his, unwavering. "I am willing. He is innocent, I will protect him." Kale studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement of her courage and determination. "Very well, but understand this, courage alone may not be enough. You will need more than skill, you will need trust, and you will need me." The night air was cool as they moved through the castle, shadows stretching across the walls. Alara's heart pounded, not only from fear, but from the closeness of Kale, the intensity of his presence, and the unspoken bond that had formed between them. They reached the northern woods, the place where the first attack had occurred. The trees loomed tall and dark, their branches like fingers reaching out to snatch the unwary. Alara nocked an arrow, her hand steady despite the tremor in her chest. The attackers emerged, faster and more numerous than before. Alara fired, arrows flying with precision, but there were too many. Kale moved beside her, his power flaring, dispelling the corrupted Lycans with waves of silver light and strength. Yet the danger was relentless. One of the corrupted Lycans lunged at Aiden. Alara sprang forward, placing herself in the path. Pain lanced through her side, but she fired her arrow anyway, striking the creature down. Kale caught her as she stumbled, their bodies pressed together in the heat of battle. For a moment time seemed to freeze, the world reduced to the feel of him, the pulse of danger and the unspoken words that hung between them. When the fight ended, silence fell once more. The corrupted Lycans had fled, leaving only the faint scent of blood and smoke in the air. Alara knelt beside Aiden, brushing his fur and whispering reassurances. Kale stood nearby, his chest heaving, eyes on her with a mixture of pride and something deeper, more dangerous. "You have faced the heart of the curse tonight," he said quietly, approaching her. "And yet you live. Few have survived what you endured. You are stronger than you realize." Alara looked up at him, breath ragged, heart pounding. "I did what I had to do, for him, for the pup, for you." Kale's eyes flickered, the faintest hint of emotion breaking through his stoic exterior. "You are reckless, but I cannot deny the bond you have forged tonight. It is not just courage that saved him, it is your heart, and that is something no curse can destroy." The forest whispered around them, carrying secrets, warnings, and the promise of trials yet to come. But in that moment, Alara knew something. She would face whatever darkness awaited with Kale by her side, and with the pup she had sworn to protect. Cliffhanger, as they returned to the castle, a shadow flickered in the distance, tall, human-like, and silent. Kale's eyes narrowed. "They are not finished with us," he said, voice low and dangerous. "And next time, they will not hold back." The castle stood silent under the heavy cloak of night, shadows stretching across its stone walls like fingers. Inside, Kale moved swiftly, every sense alert. The earlier sightings of the shadowy figure had been only the beginning. The attackers would not relent. They had tasted the taste of their prey, and now they returned with vengeance. Alara stood beside him, bow in hand, heart steady despite the exhaustion that threatened to pull her down. Her arms ached from training, her sides still sore from the previous fights, yet determination burned brighter than fatigue. She would protect Aiden, she would protect the king, and she would face whatever came. Aiden stirred in his small bed, his silver fur shimmering faintly in the torchlight. He blinked up at Alara with innocent eyes, unaware of the danger waiting outside. Alara crouched beside him, brushing his soft fur. "Stay safe, little one," she whispered. "I will not let anything harm you." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and protective. "You will not be alone," he said, his silver eyes glowing faintly. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The first sign of the enemy arrived in silence. A low, eerie hum carried through the castle corridors, growing louder with each heartbeat. Figures emerged from the shadows, moving with unnatural speed. They were not ordinary humans or even ordinary Lycans. They were creatures corrupted by dark magic, their eyes glowing red, their movements precise and deadly. Alara knocked an arrow breath steady. Kale's form shimmered with power, his presence alone radiating strength and command. "Stay close," he instructed, "and trust me, trust the bond we share. That is stronger than any curse they may carry." The attackers surged forward. Alara fired, arrows slicing through the air, each strike dispersing a creature into harmless mist. Kale moved like a storm, hands glowing, energy radiating outward, dissolving enemies before they could strike. Yet despite their skill, the sheer number of attackers pressed them back. One of the corrupted creatures lunged at Aiden. Without hesitation, Alara sprang in front of him, releasing an arrow that struck true. Pain flared in her side, sharp and burning, but she did not falter. Kale caught her as she stumbled, their bodies pressed together, hearts pounding. For a moment the world narrowed to that instant, the feel of him, the pulse of danger, and the unspoken bond growing stronger between them. "You are reckless," Kale said, his voice low but filled with something softer than anger. "But it is your courage, your loyalty that will save us." Alara straightened, determination blazing in her eyes. "I will not fail." Together they moved as one, covering each other, fighting back the tide of darkness. Arrows flew, energy flared, and the corrupted creatures fell one by one. The castle seemed alive, responding to their strength, corridors echoing with the clash of will and power. In the midst of battle, Kale's power surged, the curse that had haunted his lineage threatening to rise and consume him. Alara saw it in his eyes, the struggle, the danger, the pull of forces older than either of them. Without thinking, she reached for his hand. "Trust me," she whispered. "We face this together." Kale's jaw tightened, but he held her gaze, their hands clasped firmly. The bond they had formed, fragile yet unbreakable, anchored him, holding the darkness at bay. Together they channeled their strength, weaving courage and loyalty into a shield that radiated outward, pushing back the corrupted Lycans. The final wave of enemies fell. Silence returned, heavy and still. Smoke drifted through the halls, torchlight flickering across the fallen, and the first pale light of dawn began to seep through the windows. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted but alive. Aiden padded over, pressing close to her, his small body warm and trusting. She hugged him tightly, whispering reassurances she knew he did not yet understand. Kale approached slowly, his eyes fixed on her. There was no command in his gaze, no judgment, only a quiet acknowledgement of everything she had done. "You have faced the heart of the curse," he said softly, "and survived. Few have ever endured what you have endured, and few are still with such grace and courage." Alara looked up at him, breath ragged, body aching, yet a spark of something new burned within her. I did what I had to do, for him, for the pack, and for you." Kale's expression softened, the stoic mask of the king slipping to reveal a glimpse of the man beneath. He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And in doing so, you have changed everything. Not just for the pup, not just for the pack, but for me. You have reminded me of something I had long forgotten, that even in darkness there is light. Even in power there is love. Alara's chest tightened, heart beating faster than it should. I never wanted anything for myself. I only wanted to protect him, but somehow I feel as if I have found more than I expected. Kale's hand lingered on hers, a silent promise. You have, and I will not let you go. The pack, the kingdom, even the curse itself will not separate us. We face it all together. Outside, the forest began to stir with the first songs of birds welcoming the dawn. Light spilled over the castle, painting the stone walls in gold and silver. The shadows that had plagued the night fled before it, leaving only peace for now. Alara rose to her feet, supporting herself on Kale. The castle felt different in the morning light, less threatening, less heavy, filled with possibility. She looked out across the courtyard, then back at the king, and realized that the bond they shared had transformed them both. Aiden ran ahead, chasing the first rays of sun, his laughter a clear, pure sound that carried through the halls. Alara watched him, then turned to Kale. We did it, he's safe. And maybe we are too. Kale's lips curved into a faint, rare smile. For now, he said. But the world outside these walls is not free from danger. There will always be challenges, threats, forces that test loyalty and courage. That is the life of a king and the life of those who stand by him. Alara nodded. Then I will stand by you, whatever comes. The day moved slowly, gently, as the castle and its inhabitants began to breathe again. Elders emerged from their chambers, acknowledging the bravery she had shown. Their expressions softened with respect. Guards offered nods of approval, and for the first time, Alara felt a true sense of belonging, not as an outsider but as part of the pack, as part of something greater than herself. Later, Kale led her to the highest balcony of the castle. The wind swept through her hair, carrying the scent of the forest, of freedom, of life. Below them, the land stretched endlessly, bathed in gold and green, and in that moment the weight of the past, the battles, and the curse seemed to lift, leaving only possibility. Kale placed a hand over hers, their fingers entwined. We have survived the darkness, he said softly, and in doing so we have begun something new. Together, we will face whatever the world offers and we will endure. Not just for us, but for the pack, for Aiden, for all who rely on courage and loyalty. Alara smiled, her heart full despite the exhaustion and the scars she carried. Then we face it together, always. Aiden ran past them, barking happily, chasing the first morning butterflies. Alara laughed softly, brushing a hand over Kale's, feeling the warmth of life, of hope, of something enduring. The curse that had haunted Kale's bloodline was not fully gone. It would test them again, as all darkness does. But they had discovered something stronger than fear, stronger than pain, trust, loyalty, and love. Kale's eyes met hers, silver and steadfast, a silent vow that whatever challenges awaited, they would face them as one. The sun climbed higher, spilling light across the kingdom, the forest, and the castle walls. Shadows fled before it, but the memory of the night remained, a reminder of courage, sacrifice, and the bond between a human girl who risked everything, and the Lycan king who had learned to trust, to protect, and to love. In that moment, with the pup safe, the castle at peace, and the dawn breaking over the world, Alara understood something she had not known before. That bravery is not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it. And sometimes, love and loyalty are the most powerful magic of all. The forest whispered softly, winds carrying secrets and promises of the days to come. Alara and Kale stood together, hands clasped, hearts intertwined, ready to meet whatever the world had left for them. And in the quiet morning, a bond forged in shadows and strengthened by sacrifice shone brighter than any curse, pure, unbreakable, and eternal.